I've been promising this video for a couple of weeks, and I'm going to talk about my transition from iRacing to ACC. So are you an iRacer that's jumped on ACC and you're struggling? Well, in this video, I'm going to talk about the changes I've made to my driving style and the little tips and tricks I've learned to make me a little bit more competitive on ACC. Yeah, so we're going to talk about what changes I've made and things that I've learned, and it's probably not going to come as a huge surprise to many, although these little changes have made a huge difference, and I'm now competing-ish in the top split on LFM. Now, I'm not the quickest of drivers, but I can usually hold my own in the top split on iRacing, and that's tip number 1. Don't expect to come from iRacing, even if you are a 4K, 5K driver. Don't expect to then jump into ACC and be competitive, because it's not going to happen. The guys on there have been on there for a long time. They know all about ACC. They know how it handles. They know how it works. And there are some super fast esports drivers on ACC. So you've got to be prepared to be mid-pack or back at the pack at the beginning, just until you find your feet. So don't be disheartened if you go on ACC and you are back of the pack. Things do start to slot into place the more practice that you do. So that's tip number 1. Don't expect to jump on ACC and be fast. Tip number 2 is about tyre pressures. Now, on iRacing, you don't have to worry about the tyre pressures. You leave them. Like, it doesn't really play a part. You drop them as low as you can. Happy days. But on ACC, it makes a massive difference. Now, I'm led to believe the sweet spot on ACC for the tyre pressures is 27.7 PSI. And it's just a case of going out there, setting your pressures, doing a few laps, making some adjustments until when the pressures are hot, it's 27.7. So what happens when you've been practicing and the tyre pressures are where you want them to be? Then you jump into a race and the air temperature and track temperature is different. What do? So you go to load your setup, and I always save mine like that. So 23 is the first number. So if you look in the top right, you've got temperature. So the first temperature is ambient temperature. Second temperature is the track temperature. So I save mine 2328 R. So that would be race. So 23 ambient, 28 track R for race. So we'll load that one. But the track temperature, as you can see now, is 37 degrees Celsius. And the ambient is 30 degrees Celsius. Now, I was always adjusting my pressures based off the track temperature. But the general rule of thumb is that you adjust your PSI in your tyres 0.1% every degree of difference in the ambient temperature, not the track. So in this scenario, we've loaded our setup, which is 23 ambient temperature. And obviously right now it's 30 degrees ambient temperature. So we need to lower our pressures 0.7%. So that would mean that our front left would now be 24.2. Same with the right front, 24.2. The right rear would go to 24.6. And the same with the left rear. So we've reduced our tyre pressures 0.7 of a PSI. I was always adjusting mine based off the track temperature, and I was wondering why I was getting things completely wrong. So that's tip number 2, getting your tyre pressures in that sweet spot, 27.7 PSI, and adjusting them up or down based on the ambient temperature of the setup and the ambient temperature of the session that you're in. So the third tip that I'm going to give you is about the circuit. Now, you've probably learned all of the circuits on ACC, or most of them, on iRacing. However, you need to learn them again. Because I was driving ACC like I would drive iRacing. I was staying to the iRacing track limit, so I didn't get a 1x or a slowdown. However, on ACC, it's different. You can go wide on ACC, where you would normally get a 1x, and cut a corner on ACC, where you would normally get a 1x or a slowdown. So you've got to relearn the circuits, having a look at what other people are doing. So when you're in a session, have a look at the faster guys and see where they're going wider, see where they're cutting the track, because chances are you're still driving the circuit as if you would be on iRacing. But take Silverstone, for example. This chicane here on iRacing, you've got loads of sausage curbs. So you've got one on the right-hand side, which you can't cut, and then you've got one on the exit you've got to be very careful with. On ACC, there's no curb on the right-hand side, so you can cut that. And the same on exit, there's no sausage curb, so you can run a little bit wider. You can gain loads of time on those corners alone. So tips number 4 and 5 are linked. It's to do with the controls, the brake and the accelerator. Like a massive difference between iRacing and ACC. And you've got to have trust in the ABS and the traction control, because in ACC they seem to work. So here's 2 clips now, both in the BMW M4 GT3. Firstly, on iRacing, you'll see by the telemetry you're doing a little bit of a dance with the brake and the accelerator. You just can't seem to get the power down. It just wants to spin up, and I'm using exactly the same ABS and TC settings on both simulators. Compare that with ACC. Well, you can get hard on the brakes and you can absolutely stamp on the accelerator pedal. The traction, yeah, it loses traction, but it's controllable, so you can trust it. And again, that's where I was losing absolutely masses of time. Exactly the same scenario with the brakes. On iRacing, you're never at really 100%. Now and again, you can go 100% for a fraction of a second, but you're doing a bit of a dance with the brake pedal. You're at 80%, 70%, gradually reducing it. On ACC, it's 100%, and then you've still got to release the brake pedal gently on ACC, so you still got to think about the weight transfer of the vehicle, but you can get to 100% brakes. That's when it's most efficient on ACC, and then transition off into the trail braking phase of the braking. Again, I was losing like so much time trying to brake on ACC like I was on iRacing. So the next tip I'm going to give you is to do with the curbs. Now, on ACC, curbs are not your friend. So we're going to jump in the car now. I'm going to give you a quick demonstration at Monza, the first 2 chicanes in particular, and the differences between iRacing and ACC. So here we are then on iRacing at Monza. Now, the first chicane and the second chicane, well, that's where all of your time is gained on iRacing, is by knowing how much you can skip the curbs. But skipping the curbs in ACC doesn't really work. So I'll demonstrate how you would usually take them on iRacing and how much easier it is than it is on ACC. So we're going to approach turn 1 on the first chicane, and you would usually take a massive chunk of that one and then over that one, a bit like that. So second chicane, similar story, but you can really take liberties with the second part of the chicane. I'll show you exactly what I mean. So we're going to break down second gear. We're going to cut this first one, but then the second one you can absolutely hammer. And that's where all of your time is gained on iRacing. So we're now in ACC and we'll do exactly the same. And we'll try and go over the curbs like you would do on iRacing. And I fell foul of this when I first started ACC. So down to first, and we'll try and cut that one. Oh, no, it's not going to work. And that's definitely not going to work. And then you're on to the sand. Well, yeah, the first chicane might not be doable. Let's try it on the second chicane. Curbs are curbs, right? Same car. BMW M4 GT3. Exactly the same car. So we'll do the same. Go out of second gear. We'll cut this one like we would. No, it's not going to work. Definitely not going to work. So there. In ACC, curbs are not your friend. And the last tip I'm going to give you is to sign up to Low Fuel Motorsports. If you haven't done that, do that. It's very similar to iRacing. You have a safety rating and you have a driver ranking. There are rules, regulation, a code of conduct. You can submit protests. If you haven't signed up to LFM and you're thinking about racing ACC competitively, make sure you sign up for LFM because it's completely transformed ACC. So those are my tips for those on iRacing that are struggling on ACC. Firstly, don't expect to be quick because you won't be. It takes time. Secondly, make sure the tyres are in that sweet spot and adjust them accordingly. Thirdly, learn the tracks again. Don't drive them as you would drive them on iRacing. You've got to completely learn them again because the cuts and the places where you can go wide on ACC, they're different to iRacing. Stay off the curbs. Curbs are not your friend in ACC. And accelerating and braking, well, you've got to accelerate harder earlier. Trust the TC. Same with the brakes. You've got to brake to 100%. You can hold that brake almost all the way to the apex, then just trail brake off. Have trust in the TC. Have trust in the ABS. So hopefully this helps a few people out. I know it's difficult, but don't give up. Don't jump on ACC and think, oh, I can't drive this. It's nothing like iRacing. You need to put the time in. Like I said, I've got over 370 hours on ACC, and it's only these last few weeks where things have started to click into place. But let me know down below in the comments if you are an iRacer and are you struggling on ACC and are you maybe doing the same things that I was doing. But let me know in the comments below. As always, thanks for watching. Have a great week. See you later. Cheers.